The bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Sovereign's will hummed with activity. Admiral Kiros Valeth stood before the main view screen, his forearms crossed behind his back. The massive alien was 7 feet tall with dark purple skin and yellow eyes that glowed in the dim light. His empire had conquered 17 star systems in the past 50 years. No species had ever lasted more than 3 hours against Imperial forces. "Admiral, we are detecting strange signals from the outer rim," reported his communications officer. The signals came from beyond their territory, from a region they had never explored. "What kind of signals?" Valeth asked, his voice deep and commanding. "Unknown origin, sir. The patterns are unlike anything in our databases. They appear to be some form of communication network." Valeth smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Another primitive species to add to the empire. "Prepare the fleet. We leave in 2 hours." The seared Imperial fleet was impressive. 200 warships of various sizes, all painted in the Empire's black and gold colors. The smallest ships carried 50 crew members and enough firepower to level a city. The largest dreadnoughts could destroy entire planets if needed. Admiral Valeth had never needed more than half his fleet for any conquest. Meanwhile, far from the Imperial borders, Captain Ji-Won Kim sat in his command chair aboard the human vessel Soul's Pride. The ship was sleek and white, much smaller than the Imperial dreadnoughts but built with Earth's finest technology. Ji-Won was 35 years old with kind eyes and a calm manner that made his crew trust him completely. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up a large fleet heading our way," reported Minho Park from the tactical station. He was younger than his captain, with quick hands and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "How large?" Ji-Won asked, not seeming worried at all. 200 ships, sir. They're big. Much bigger than ours." Navigator Hana Lee looked up from her station. "Sir, they'll reach us in about 6 hours at their current speed." Ji-Won nodded slowly, then did something that would have confused any alien watching. He smiled. It was not a worried smile or a nervous smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that others did not. "Send a message to all ships in our fleet," Ji-Won said calmly. "Tell them we have visitors coming. Remind all captains about Protocol 7. The human fleet was much smaller than the Imperial force. Only 50 ships floated in the dark space near a small asteroid field. They had come here to study the strange rocks and minerals, or so it appeared to anyone watching. The ships looked peaceful, built for exploration rather than war. Their white hulls gleamed in the starlight, and they moved with gentle grace through space. On the bridge of Soul's Pride, the crew went about their duties with quiet efficiency. No one seemed afraid or worried about the approaching fleet. If anything, they seemed more interested than concerned. "Sir, I'm getting more details about the incoming ships," Minho reported. "The lead vessel is massive, probably a dreadnought class. The others are various sizes, all heavily armed." "Any attempt at communication from them?" Ji-Won asked. "Not yet, sir. They're maintaining radio silence." Ji-Won stood and walked to the large view screen at the front of the bridge. Space looked peaceful and empty, but he knew that would change soon. "Hana, send a message to Commander Taehyun on the Busan's resolve. Tell him to begin preparations." Commander Taehyun Choi received the message within minutes. His ship, Busan's Resolve, was one of the larger vessels in the human fleet. Like all the others, it appeared to be a peaceful exploration ship. But Taehyun knew better. He had served with Captain Ji-Won for 8 years, and he understood what preparations meant. "All department heads report to the bridge," Taehyun announced over the ship's communication system. Within 5 minutes, his senior officers had gathered around the command table. "We have an unknown fleet approaching," Taehyun explained. 200 ships, heavily armed. Captain Ji-Won has authorized Protocol 7. His officers nodded. They had trained for this situation many times, though they had never expected to use their training. Earth had been at peace for decades, but that did not mean they had forgotten how to defend themselves. "Engineering. Begin system modifications," Taehyun ordered. "Weapons. Start charging the main batteries but keep them hidden. Navigation. Plot escape routes for all 50 ships." "Sir," his tactical officer asked, "should we call for reinforcements?" Taehyun smiled, the same secret smile that Captain Ji-Won had shown. That won't be necessary. We can handle this ourselves. Across the human fleet, similar preparations were taking place. On the Daegu's Wrath, Captain Soyun Bei was reviewing her ship's defensive systems. On the Incheon's Thunder, Chief Engineer Junho Nam was making quiet adjustments to the ship's power systems. Every human ship in the fleet was getting ready, but they did it so smoothly that any outside observer would think they were just conducting normal maintenance. The Imperial fleet continued its approach, and Admiral Valeth grew more confident. With each passing hour, his sensors showed the enemy fleet clearly now, 50 small ships, apparently civilian vessels. Some appeared to be science ships, others looked like cargo haulers. None of them looked like military vessels. "Admiral, we're close enough for detailed scans," his science officer reported. "The enemy ships show no weapons signatures, no shields raised. They appear to be completely defenseless." Valeth laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. Defenseless, just as expected. Probably some merchant fleet that wandered too far from home. He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to all Imperial ships. Tell them this will be over quickly. We'll demand surrender, take what we want, and move on." But something bothered the Admiral, though he could not say what. The enemy ships were not running away. They were not sending distress calls or trying to hide. They just sat there in space, waiting. In his 50 years of conquest, Valeth had never seen defenders act so calmly when facing impossible odds. On the Soul's Pride, Captain Jiwon watched the approaching Imperial fleet with interest. The alien ships were indeed impressive, built for intimidation as much as combat. Their dark hulls bristled with weapons, and they moved in perfect formation like a swarm of angry insects. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead ship," Hana reported. "Put it on screen." The view screen filled with the image of Admiral Valeth. The alien's appearance was designed to inspire fear, and it usually worked. His glowing eyes and sharp teeth had made countless species surrender without a fight. But Captain Jiwon just looked at the screen with polite interest, as if he were meeting a new neighbor rather than facing a deadly enemy. "I am Admiral Kairos, Valeth of the Valerian Empire," the alien announced. "You are trespassing in space that will soon belong to us. Surrender your ships and prepare to be boarded." Jiwon smiled again, that same mysterious smile. "Greetings, Admiral. I am Captain Jiwon Kim of Earth's Exploration Fleet. We're honored to meet you. This is first contact between our species, isn't it? How exciting." Admiral Valeth was taken aback. The human showed no fear, no desperation. He spoke as if they were having a pleasant conversation rather than discussing surrender. "You have 1 hour to comply," Valeth growled, trying to regain control of the situation. "After that, we will take your ships by force." "We appreciate the warning," Jiwon replied, calmly. "Would you like to discuss this over coffee? We have excellent coffee aboard our ships." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Valeth staring at a blank screen. In all his years of conquest, no one had ever offered him coffee during a surrender demand. Admiral Valeth stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Coffee? The human had offered him coffee while surrounded by 200 Imperial warships. Either these aliens were incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. In his experience, most species were stupid. "Sir, should we prepare for immediate attack?" asked his weapons officer, a younger alien with the same purple skin but brighter yellow eyes. "Not yet," Valeth replied slowly. "I want to understand what we're dealing with first. These humans are acting strange, too calm, too confident." On the bridge of Soul's Pride, Captain Jiwon turned to his crew. "What do you think of our new friends?" "They seem aggressive, sir," Minho said from his tactical station. "Their ships are arranged in standard attack formation. Weapons are powered, but not yet locked on targets." "Their communication protocols are interesting," added Hana from navigation. "They're not encrypting anything. We can hear all their internal communications." This was true. The Imperial fleet was broadcasting their tactical discussions on open channels, apparently not caring if anyone listened. It was the behavior of a species that had never faced serious opposition. "Are we recording everything?" Jiwon asked. "Yes, sir. Every word, every data transmission. Yuna in xenoanthropology is analyzing their language patterns and cultural references." Dr. Yuna Shin was working in her lab deep inside the Soul's Pride. As the fleet's expert on alien cultures, she was studying every word the Imperials spoke. What she discovered worried her. "Captain," she said over the communication system, "these aliens have a culture built entirely on conquest. Their language has 17 different words for surrender, but no word for negotiate. They've never met anyone who could fight back." "Understood," Ji-Wan replied. "Keep analyzing. I want to know everything about them." Meanwhile, on the Incheon's Thunder, Chief Engineer Junho Nam was making final adjustments to his ship's systems. To any outside observer, it would look like routine maintenance, but Junho was actually preparing his ship for combat in ways the Imperials would never expect. "How are the modifications coming?" asked his assistant engineer. "Almost finished," Yunyo replied, his hands moving quickly over the control panels. "The other ships are reporting similar progress. We should be ready within the hour." The modifications were not weapons or shields. The human ships already had those, though they were carefully hidden. Instead, Junho was preparing something much more sophisticated, a complete electronic warfare package that could turn the Imperials' own technology against them. Back on the Imperial flagship, Admiral Valeth was growing impatient. The hour deadline was approaching, and the human ships still showed no signs of surrender. They had not even raised their shields or powered their weapons. They just floated there, seemingly defenseless. "Admiral," his science officer reported, "I'm detecting some unusual activity from the human ships. It looks like they're running system diagnostics on all their vessels." "System diagnostics?" Valeth was confused. "Why would they run diagnostics when facing attack?" "Unknown, sir. Maybe their ships are old and unreliable." This made sense to the Admiral. The human ships did look different from Imperial vessels. Where Imperial ships were angular and covered with weapon ports, the human ships were smooth and sleek. They looked more like pleasure craft than warships. "Sir, 30 minutes remaining until the deadline," reported his communications officer. "Open a channel to the human fleet," Valeth ordered. Captain Ji-Wan's face appeared on the screen again. He still looked calm and relaxed, as if he were sitting in a comfortable office rather than on a warship facing impossible odds. "Admiral," Ji-Wan said pleasantly, "have you considered our coffee offer? We also have excellent tea if you prefer." "Enough!" Valeth roared. "You have 30 minutes to surrender or we will destroy you." "That's unfortunate," Ji-Wan replied, sounding genuinely sad. "We had hoped for a more peaceful first contact. But if you insist on violence, we understand." "You understand?" Valeth was getting angry now. "You have 50 small ships against our 200 dreadnoughts. How can you possibly understand anything except defeat?" Ji-Wan smiled that mysterious smile again. "Admiral, would you like to see a demonstration of Imperial technology? We're quite impressed by your weapon systems." This caught Valeth off guard. "A demonstration?" "Yes. Perhaps you could show us how powerful your main guns are. There's a large asteroid about 10,000 kilometers from here. Could you destroy it for us? We'd love to see Imperial engineering in action." Admiral Valeth was suspicious, but he also felt pride. These humans wanted to see the power of the Empire. Very well, he would show them exactly what they were facing. Target: the large asteroid, he ordered his weapons officer. "Fire the main plasma cannon." The Sovereign's will turned slightly, bringing its massive main weapon to bear on the asteroid. The gun was as large as a city block, capable of cracking a planet's surface. Against a simple rock, it would be complete overkill. The plasma beam lanced out, brilliant blue-white energy that turned night into day. It struck the asteroid and vaporized it instantly. Where there had been a mountain-sized rock, now there was only glowing gas that quickly dispersed into space. "Impressive," came Captain Ji-Wan's voice over the communication channel. "Your weapons technology is quite advanced. The energy efficiency is remarkable." On the bridge of Soul's Pride, Minho was analyzing every detail of the weapon's performance. "Sir, I've got complete readings on their plasma cannon. Power output, charging time, targeting system, everything." "Excellent," Ji-Wan replied quietly. "Send the data to all ships." Across the human fleet, tactical officers were studying the Imperial demonstration with great interest, but they were not afraid. They were learning. "Sir," Captain Soyeonbae reported from the Daigu's Wrath, "based on their weapon performance, I can calculate exact defensive requirements. Their guns are powerful but predictable." "Good to know," Ji-won replied. Are all ships ready? Yes, sir. All modifications complete. All systems green. Admiral Valeth was feeling confident now. The humans had seen Imperial firepower and would surely surrender. But Captain Ji-won's next words surprised him again. That was quite impressive, Admiral. Would you like to see one of our demonstrations? Your demonstration? Valeth laughed. You have no weapons. Oh, we have weapons, Ji-won said softly. We just prefer not to use them. But since you've shown us yours, it's only polite to return the favor. Something in the human's tone made Admiral Valeth nervous. For the first time since the encounter began, he wondered if he might have made a mistake. All human ships, Captain Ji-won announced over the fleet communication channel. Prepare for demonstration. Show our guests what Earth engineering can accomplish. The human ships began to move, but instead of forming attack formations or raising shields, they did something completely unexpected. They began to dance. 50 ships moved in perfect coordination, each one following a precise pattern that looked almost like a ballet performed in space. They spun and turned, crossed paths and separated, all without ever coming close to collision. What are they doing? Admiral Valeth demanded. His science. Officer studied his instruments carefully. Sir, I'm not sure. It appears to be some sort of formation flying, but I've never seen anything like it. The precision required would be impossible for any species we know. Are they trying to confuse our targeting systems? I don't think so, sir. They're not trying to hide or evade, they're just dancing. But the dance was more than it appeared. Each human ship was taking precise measurements of the Imperial fleet, analyzing their formations, studying their technology. The smooth movements allowed them to scan every Imperial vessel from multiple angles while looking completely harmless. Admiral, Captain Ji-won's voice came over the communication system again. We wanted to show you that humans value beauty and precision. Even our exploration ships are capable of remarkable coordination. This is meaningless, Valeth shouted. Pretty flying means nothing in battle. Perhaps not, Ji-won agreed, but it does demonstrate something important. And what is that? Ji-won's smile grew wider. That we've been scanning your entire fleet while you watched our ships dance. We now know the exact specifications of every Imperial vessel, every weapon system, every defensive measure. We know your tactical doctrines, your command structure, and your technological limitations. The communication channel went silent. Admiral Valeth stared at the screen, finally beginning to understand that he might have underestimated these humans. You have 5 minutes remaining, Ji-won said gently. We suggest you use them wisely. Admiral Valeth felt something he had not experienced in decades. Uncertainty. The human captain spoke with the confidence of someone who held all the advantages, despite being outnumbered 4-1. This was wrong. This was not how conquests were supposed to work. Sir, 4 minutes remaining, his weapons officer reported nervously. I know, Valeth snapped. He turned to his tactical officer. Are you certain they have no weapons? Our scans show no obvious weapon systems, sir. But... The officer hesitated. But what? Sir, their ships are built very strangely. There are sections we cannot scan properly. The metal they use seems to absorb our sensor beams. Admiral Valeth studied the human fleet through his view screen. The 50 ships had stopped their strange dance and were now arranged in a loose formation. They still looked peaceful, but something about their positioning bothered him. Admiral, came Captain Ji-won's voice over the communication system. 2 minutes remaining. Have you reached a decision? You cannot defeat the Imperial fleet with 50 small ships, Valeth declared, though his voice carried less certainty than before. We don't want to defeat anyone, Admiral. We prefer peaceful solutions. But you seem determined to use violence. Then you will learn the price of defying the Empire. If you insist, Ji-won replied sadly. But remember, you were warned. The communication channel closed. Admiral Valeth stood silent for a moment, then made his decision. All ships prepare for attack. Target the enemy vessels and fire on my command. Across the Imperial fleet, weapon systems came online. Plasma cannons charged, missile tubes loaded, and shields powered up. 200 warships prepared to unleash enough firepower to destroy a small planet. But on the human ships, something else was happening. Captain Soyeon Bae stood on the bridge of Daigu's Wrath, watching her tactical display. "All systems ready?" she reported to her crew. "Engineering reports full power to all systems." Her weapons officer, Hyunwoo Jang, monitored his console carefully. "Defensive grid is active but hidden. Point defense systems are online. Railguns are charged and ready." Railguns? Admiral Valeth would have been shocked to hear that word. The Empire had experimented with railgun technology decades ago, but abandoned it as too difficult to control. Plasma weapons were simpler and more reliable. But humans had never stopped improving their railgun technology. The weapons hidden inside human ships could fire projectiles at 10% of light speed. At that velocity, even a small piece of metal could punch through any armor the Empire had ever built. On the Soul's Pride, Captain Jiwon received reports from all 50 ships. "All vessels report ready, sir. Defensive systems active. Electronic warfare packages loaded. Kinetic weapons armed." "Sir," Minho said from his tactical station, "the Imperial ships are moving into attack formation. There'll be an optimal firing. Position in 30 seconds. Understood. Hana, open a channel to the entire Imperial fleet." "Channel open, sir." Jiwon's voice broadcast to every Imperial ship. "This is Captain Jiwon Kim of Earth's Exploration Fleet. You have chosen violence over diplomacy. We regret this decision. All Imperial vessels, you have 10 seconds to power down your weapons and withdraw. This is your final warning." Admiral Valeth laughed harshly. "Final warning? You're about to be destroyed." He turned to his weapons officer. "All ships, open fire!" The Imperial fleet unleashed its fury. 200 ships fired at once, sending thousands of plasma bolts and missiles toward the human vessels. The space between the fleets lit up like a deadly fireworks display. But something impossible happened. The human ships didn't try to dodge or run away. Instead, they simply weren't there when the weapons arrived. "What?" Admiral Valeth stared at his tactical display. "Where did they go?" "Sir, the human ships are still in the same positions," his science officer reported in confusion. "But somehow our weapons missed them completely." This was the moment the Imperial fleet learned their first lesson about human technology. The strange dance the human ships had performed was not just for scanning. It had also allowed them to map every Imperial weapons targeting system, firing pattern, and projectile path. Human computers had calculated exactly where each Imperial shot would go, and the human ships had simply moved out of the way at the last possible second. To Imperial sensors, it looked like the humans had never moved at all. "Impossible!" Valeth shouted. "No one can dodge that many weapons at once." "Admiral," his tactical officer said in a shaky voice, "the human ships are targeting us." For the first time, the Imperial sensors detected human weapons. But what they saw made no sense. The human ships had no visible gun ports, no missile tubes, no obvious weapons at all. Yet energy readings showed that every human vessel was preparing to fire something. On the Busan's Resolve, Commander Taehyun Choi watched his tactical display with satisfaction. "All ships report successful evasion. 0 damage taken. Enemy weapons are less accurate than expected." "Sir, should we return fire?" his weapons officer asked. "Not yet. Let them fire again first. We want them to waste more ammunition." This was human military doctrine. Never reveal your full capabilities until absolutely necessary. Let the enemy exhaust themselves against your defenses, then strike back with overwhelming force. Admiral Valeth ordered a second attack, concentrating all firepower on just 10 human ships. Surely they could not all dodge if the attack was focused. Enough? But they did dodge. Again. Every single shot missed, and the humans still had not fired back. "Sir," the Imperial science officer said nervously, "I think they're playing with us." Before Admiral Valeth could respond, Captain Jiwon's voice came over the communication system again. "Admiral, you've had your demonstration. Now it's our turn. All ships, show them what human engineering can accomplish." The human ships finally revealed their weapons, but instead of plasma cannons or missile launchers, they deployed something the Empire had never seen before: rails, extended from hidden ports on each human vessel. These were not the crude railguns the Empire remembered from their failed experiments. These were works of art, precision instruments that could put a projectile through a target smaller than a coin from 1,000 kilometers away. "All ships," Captain Jiwon commanded, Fire warning shots. Show them we could destroy them if we chose to. 50 human ships fired at once, but instead of aiming at Imperial vessels, they targeted the space around them. Railgun projectiles moving at relativistic speeds created brilliant streaks of light as they passed between Imperial ships, missing them by mere meters. The message was clear. We could have hit you, but we chose not to. Incredible, whispered the Imperial science officer. The precision required for those shots. Admiral Valeth finally understood what he was facing. These were not primitive aliens with inferior technology. These were apex predators who had been holding back their true capabilities, studying him like a scientist might study an interesting insect. "Sir, the humans are hailing us again," his communications officer reported. Captain Jiwan appeared on the screen, still wearing that mysterious smile. "Admiral, we've demonstrated that your weapons cannot hit us, and our weapons can hit anything we choose. Would you like to reconsider your aggressive approach?" "This is impossible," Valeth said weakly. "How can 50 ships outmatch 200? "Simple," Jiwan replied. "We've had centuries to perfect our technology while fighting each other. When humans finally achieved peace, we didn't stop innovating. We just stopped building weapons of conquest and started building tools of exploration. But exploration ships still need to defend themselves. Your ships are too small to carry such powerful weapons. Admiral, you're thinking in terms of your technology. Human ships don't need massive gun batteries because our weapons are more efficient. We don't need thick armor because our point defense systems can stop any projectile. We don't need huge engines because our power systems are more advanced." Jiwan paused, letting this information sink in. "Your ships are built to intimidate primitive species. Our ships are built to explore a dangerous universe. There's a difference." Admiral Valeth looked around his bridge at his nervous crew. For the first time in his career, he was facing an enemy that was technologically superior to the Empire. The humans had demonstrated that they could destroy his entire fleet without losing a single ship. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "Nothing from you," Jiwan replied. "We want to explore this region of space peacefully. We want to learn about other species and share knowledge. We don't want to conquer anyone or take anything that doesn't belong to us." "And if we refuse to leave?" Jiwan's smile faded slightly. "Then you'll learn why Earth stopped building warships 50 years ago. We didn't need them anymore." Nothing in the galaxy required that level of response. The implication was clear. The human exploration fleet was more advanced than anything the Empire had ever faced. If humans had military vessels specifically designed for warfare, they would be beyond the Empire's ability to comprehend. Admiral Valeth stared at the screen, realizing that his empire had just encountered something it was not equipped to handle. Admiral Valeth felt sweat forming on his purple skin, despite the cool air of his bridge. In 50 years of conquest, he had never faced a situation like this. The humans had just demonstrated that they could destroy his entire fleet without taking a single casualty, yet they continued to offer peaceful dialogue. "Admiral," his communications officer said quietly, "the other Imperial captains are requesting orders. They're nervous." Valeth could understand why. His fleet had just fired thousands of weapons at 50 small ships and missed completely. Then those same small ships had demonstrated pinpoint accuracy by threading railgun projectiles between Imperial vessels with impossible precision. The message was clear. The humans could have destroyed them all but chose not to. "Sir, what are your orders?" his weapons officer asked. Before Valeth could answer, his tactical officer spoke up urgently. "Admiral, the human ships are moving again." On the view screen, the 50 human vessels were indeed moving, but not in any attack formation Valeth recognized. Instead, they were spreading out in a wide circle around the Imperial fleet. The movement was smooth and coordinated, like a pack of hunters surrounding their prey. "Are they surrounding us?" Valeth asked. "It appears so, sir, but they're maintaining distance. No aggressive postures detected." On the bridge of Soul's Pride, Captain Jiwan watched the tactical display as his fleet took positions. "All ships report ready, sir," Minho announced from his station. "Good. Hana, open a channel to the Imperial flagship." "Channel open, sir." Admiral Valeth's face appeared on the screen. The alien looked confused and angry, but also frightened. Jiwan felt sorry for him. This was probably the first time in the Admiral's career that he had encountered a superior force. "Admiral," G1 said gently, "we've positioned our ships around your fleet not as a threat, but as a demonstration. You're completely surrounded by 50 vessels, each one capable of destroying multiple Imperial ships, yet we continue to talk instead of fight. Do you understand what this means?" "It means you're trying to intimidate us," Valeth replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "No, Admiral, it means we're trying to save lives, both yours and ours. We could have destroyed your entire fleet in the first exchange, but we chose not to. We're hoping you'll choose wisdom over pride." Dr. Yuna Shin, monitoring the conversation from her laboratory, noted the changes in Imperial communications. The alien crew was becoming increasingly nervous. Their confident chatter had been replaced by worried whispers. "Captain," she reported, to Jiwon, "the Imperial crew is beginning to doubt their Admiral's decisions. Their culture values strength, and they're starting to see this confrontation as a display of Imperial weakness rather than human aggression." "Understood," Jiwon replied privately. Then, speaking to Admiral Valeth, "Admiral, perhaps we could discuss this situation more privately? Captain to captain?" Valeth considered this. His crew was indeed becoming restless. A private conversation might allow him to save face while finding a way out of this impossible situation. "Very well," he agreed. "Private channel." The communications switched to a secure link between the two command ships. Now only Jiwon and Valeth could hear the conversation. "Admiral," Jiwon began, his voice kind but serious, "you're in an impossible situation. Your fleet cannot defeat ours, but retreating will damage your reputation with your superiors. Is there a way we can resolve this that allows you to maintain honor?" Valeth was surprised by the question. Most species, when they held the advantage, would demand complete surrender and humiliation. The humans were offering him a way to save face. "Why would you care about Imperial honor?" he asked suspiciously. "Because we want peace, not conquest," Jiwon replied. "If we humiliate you, your empire will send larger fleets to restore their reputation. If we destroy you, they'll send everything they have to avenge you. We prefer to make friends rather than enemies." "Friends?" Valeth almost laughed. "The Empire does not make friends with inferior species. Admiral, with respect, we've just demonstrated that humans are not inferior. We're different. We have different technologies, different priorities, different ways of thinking. That doesn't make us enemies unless you choose to make us enemies." Meanwhile, on the Daegu's Wrath, Captain Soyeon Bae was coordinating with the other human ships. "All vessels report ready for Phase 2, she announced over the secure fleet channel. Phase 2 was something the Imperials would not expect. If Admiral Valeth chose to continue fighting despite the demonstrations, the human fleet would show them what their technology could really do, but Soyeon hoped it wouldn't come to that. Back on the Imperial flagship, Admiral Valeth was struggling with a decision unlike any he had faced before. His tactical officer approached him carefully. "Sir, several of our captains are requesting permission to withdraw. They say the situation is too dangerous." "Withdraw?" Valeth's voice was sharp. "The Empire does not withdraw?" "Sir, with respect, the Empire has never faced anything like this. These humans have technology we don't understand. They could have destroyed us already but chose not to. Perhaps discretion would be wise." Valeth knew his officer was right, but admitting it felt like defeat. The Empire had built its reputation on overwhelming force and quick victories. How could he return home and admit that 50 small ships had outmaneuvered 200 Imperial warships? The private communication channel crackled to life again. "Admiral," came Captain Jiwon's voice, "I have a proposal." "What kind of proposal?" "Allow me to demonstrate something that might help you explain this situation to your superiors. Something that will show them why retreat is the wise choice rather than the cowardly one." "What do you have in mind?" "Give me a target." "Something large and durable. Let us show you what human weapons can do when we're not trying to avoid casualties." Admiral Valeth thought for a moment. There was a dead planet in this system, nothing but rock and metal. "There's a lifeless world about 1 million kilometers from here. It's approximately the size of your Earth's moon." "Perfect," Jiwon replied. "All human ships, target the dead planet." Prepare for full demonstration. Across the human fleet, weapon systems that had been held in reserve finally came online. The Imperials watched in growing amazement as energy readings from the human ships climbed far beyond what their previous scans had detected. "Sir," the Imperial science officer reported in awe, "their power output just increased by a factor of 10. How is that possible?" They were holding back, Admiral Valeth realized. 3 weeks later, Admiral Valeth stood before the Imperial Council on the homeworld of Valeria Prime. The massive chamber was filled with the Empire's most powerful leaders, all waiting to hear his report. The ornate ceiling stretched high. Above, covered with images of Imperial victories from across the galaxy. Emperor Dracus himself sat on the golden throne at the center of the chamber. The ancient ruler was larger than most of his species, with scars from countless battles marking his purple skin. His yellow eyes glowed with barely controlled anger. "Admiral Valeth," the Emperor's voice echoed through the chamber, "explain to this council how 200 Imperial warships retreated from 50 primitive vessels." Valeth stood straight, despite his nervousness. "Your Majesty, the humans are not primitive. Their technology is far beyond our own. They demonstrated capabilities that our science cannot explain." "Impossible!" shouted General Corax from his seat near the throne. "No species in this galaxy possesses technology superior to the Empire." "I saw it myself, General," Valeth replied firmly. "They destroyed a moon-sized planet in seconds. They made our entire fleet miss every shot while demonstrating perfect accuracy with their own weapons." "You're telling us that 50 small ships defeated the 7th Imperial Fleet?" Emperor Dracus leaned forward, his voice dangerous. "They didn't defeat us, Your Majesty. They chose not to destroy us. There's a difference." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the council chamber. Many of the generals and admirals had known Valeth for decades. He was not known for cowardice or exaggeration. "Show them the recordings," Valeth said to his aide. The chamber's main display activated, showing the encounter with the human fleet. The council watched in growing amazement as the Imperial weapons missed their targets completely, then stared in shocked silence as the humans vaporized an entire planet. When the recordings ended, the chamber was quiet for a long moment. "This could be faked," General Corax said weakly, but his voice lacked conviction. "It's not faked," Valeth replied. "Every ship in my fleet recorded the same events. You can verify the data." Emperor Dracus sat back in his throne, thinking carefully. In 300 years of rule, he had never encountered a situation like this. The Empire had always been the most powerful force in the galaxy. Now they had discovered a species that could destroy them without effort. "What did these humans want?" the Emperor asked. "Nothing, Your Majesty. They offered peaceful contact and cultural exchange. They seemed genuinely interested in friendship." "And you believed them?" "They could have destroyed my entire fleet without losing a single ship," Valeth said simply. "If they wanted conquest, they would have taken it. Instead, they offered diplomacy." General Corax stood angrily. "The Empire does not bow to threats from aliens." "It wasn't a threat, General. It was a demonstration of why threats are unnecessary. They showed us exactly what they could do, then chose not to do it." Meanwhile, far from the Imperial homeworld, the human exploration fleet continued its mission. Captain Jiwan sat in his ready room aboard Soul's Pride, reviewing reports from his xenoanthropology team. "Dr. Shin's analysis is fascinating," he said to Commander Tae Hyun, who was visiting from the Busan's Resolve. "The Imperial culture is built entirely on the idea that they're the strongest species in the galaxy. Learning that they're not will cause major changes in their society." "Do you think they'll accept peaceful contact?" Tae Hyun asked. "Some will. Others will see us as a challenge to be overcome. We should prepare for both possibilities." On the bridge, Minho was monitoring long-range communications. "Sir, I'm picking up increased Imperial military traffic. It looks like they're mobilizing additional fleets." "How many ships?" Jiwan asked when he returned to the bridge. "Hard to say exactly, but it's significant. Maybe 1,000 vessels or more." Jiwan nodded thoughtfully. "They're probably preparing for multiple scenarios, some fleets for peaceful contact, others for potential conflict." Back on Valeria Prime, the Imperial Council was indeed making such preparations. Emperor Dracus had divided his response into 3 parts. "Admiral Valeth will return to human space with a diplomatic mission," the Emperor announced. General Corax will prepare a military response in case diplomacy fails, and I will send scouts to gather more information about human capabilities. Your Majesty, Valeth said carefully, I strongly recommend against any military action. The humans could destroy our entire empire if they chose to. Perhaps, the Emperor replied, but the empire cannot appear weak. If we submit to these humans without resistance, every species in the galaxy will think they can challenge us. The humans don't want submission, Your Majesty. They want cooperation. We shall see, Admiral. Prepare your diplomatic mission, but General Corax will be ready if your diplomacy fails. 2 days later, Admiral Valeth departed Valeria Prime with a small fleet of 50 ships. This time, they carried diplomats instead of weapons, scientists instead of soldiers. The Admiral hoped that peaceful contact would convince both species that cooperation was better than conflict. But he also knew that General Corax was preparing the largest military fleet in Imperial history. If diplomacy failed, the Empire would send every ship they had against the humans. On Sol's Pride, Dr. Yuna Shin had been monitoring Imperial communications. Captain, the Imperials are sending 2 different responses. Admiral Valeth is coming, back with diplomats, but they're also preparing a massive military fleet. Expected, Jiwan replied. Their culture can't accept that someone might be stronger than them. They need to test our strength for themselves. Sir, Hana reported from navigation, I'm detecting the Imperial diplomatic fleet approaching our position. Same admiral as before, but only 50 ships this time. And they're not in attack formation, Minho added. Weapons are powered down, shields are inactive. Captain Jiwan smiled. It seems Admiral Valeth learned from our last encounter. Open a channel. Admiral Valeth's face appeared on the view screen. The alien looked tired but determined. Captain Kim, I've returned as promised. This time, I bring diplomats instead of weapons. Welcome back, Admiral. We're honored that you've chosen the path of diplomacy. The Empire wishes to establish formal contact with humanity. We have scientists and cultural experts aboard who would like to learn about your species. Excellent. We have similar experts who are eager to learn about Imperial culture. Shall we arrange a meeting? Over the following days, humans and Imperials met aboard neutral space stations to begin formal diplomatic contact. The meetings went well, with both species learning fascinating things about each other, but Captain Jiwan knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere in Imperial space, General Corax was building a fleet designed to test human military capabilities. The Empire needed to know if humanity could really destroy them or if the demonstration had been an elaborate bluff. Sir, Minho reported, during one of the diplomatic sessions, long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements in Imperial space. It looks like they're assembling everything they have. How many ships? Jiwan asked. Conservative estimate? 5,000 vessels. Possibly more. Commander Tai Hyun, who was present for the diplomatic meetings, whistled softly. That's their entire military. They're not planning a small test. They're planning for total war. Then we need to prepare accordingly, Jiwan said calmly. Send a message to Earth Command. Request immediate reinforcement of the exploration fleet. Sir, should we evacuate the diplomatic teams? Not yet. Diplomacy is still our best option. But make sure all ships are ready for Protocol 7 if negotiations fail. Admiral Valeth, monitoring these preparations, felt a growing sense of dread. He had hoped that peaceful contact would prevent conflict, but he knew General Corax too well. The general would not be satisfied until he had tested human military power personally. Captain Kim, Valeth said during a private communication, I must warn you, my empire is preparing for war. General Corax believes your demonstration was a trick. We appreciate the warning, Admiral. But please understand, if your empire forces a military confrontation, the results will be far worse than what you witnessed before. Worse? How could it be worse? Jiwan's smile was sad but determined. Admiral, what you saw before was an exploration fleet defending itself. If Earth sends actual warships, there won't be an empire left to negotiate with. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of both species. Diplomacy had opened a door to peace, but military pride was pushing both civilizations toward a war that only one could survive. In the depths of space, human and Imperial fleets prepared for what might be the most important battle in galactic history. The question was no longer whether humans could defend themselves. It was whether the Empire would realize the truth before it was too late to avoid annihilation.